Today, on Energy Contact, do you ever notice that the better you feel, the better you look? Good looks, like health and pleasure, come from the promotion of flow. And ugliness, like pain and sickness, come from the resistance to it. Today, we're going to take a good, healthy look at your healthy good looks, and how to promote them. So look your best and take a good look at your television, because that's what's coming up right now on Energy Contact. Hello, and welcome to Energy Contact. My name is Joseph Willenbrink. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you to the production staff here in the studio for helping me get my message out to you. Energy Contact is a series that I'm presenting to you as a public service. It's about attaining perfect health, growth, self-improvement, happiness, and realizing your full potential. It's designed to present you a new way of seeing yourself and a new way of seeing the world around you. We're talking about things that have to do with making an energetic contact with yourself internally and with your environment. There is no difference between the body, the mind, the spirit, the emotion, the intellect, the ego. There's no difference between mass and energy. We love to take these things apart, to dissect, to categorize, to classify, to pull one little part out of the whole and look at it under a microscope. But in fact, all that health and growth and self-improvement we're talking about take place when we do just the opposite. When we put these things together. When we make an energetic contact between the physical world and the unseen one. We're presenting on these programs a brand new paradigm that is thousands of years old. We're presenting extraordinary topics for ordinary people. And let's move forward with that. Let's bring up our first slide. Everyone please know that I am not a doctor. This show is not a medical advice show of any kind. It's not a medical anything show of any kind. I might call myself an energy healer, a chakra healer, things like that. So might a lot of other people. But state, federal, and local governments absolutely do not. They call me no such things. It's important to know that. There's a lot of important information on this slide. We're going to leave it up there for a couple of seconds. Please read it with your full attention. And when you've got that information down, if you would, now would be a great time to locate a pencil and paper. And here's why you want to do that. At the end of this show, we're going to run some credits, and on those credits there's going to be contact information for me. I invite and encourage you to contact me. I kind of hope that something I have to tell you today might inspire you to want to do so. But in order to contact me, you're going to need that contact information. In order to get that, you're going to need a pencil and paper. There will be plenty of time to jot it down when the credits roll if you've got your pencil and paper ready. All right, let's come back here. Today's show is show number 48. And if you're tuning in for the first time today, well, thanks and welcome. I think you'll like the show. These shows are sequential. They do build. There's some ramp-up stuff, some up-to-speed things that you will have missed out on. However, I'm doing my very best to make each program complete on a standalone basis. So I think you'll get plenty out of today's show. If it is your first time, or one of your first times though, and if what you see piques your interest, then I'll invite and encourage you to look for earlier shows. They'll be re-airing at later times, either re-airing here on this channel or at different days and times in different neighborhoods. And if you look for them, I'll appreciate it. All right, and now's the time of the show where we bring my co-host Slim on camera. Let's get Slim on there. This is my buddy Slim, and Slim is here for a reason. Since we're talking about what energy contacts in the physical self, we have to understand a couple of things, don't we? We have to understand something about energy. And if you're wanting to understand more about energy, congratulations, you're in the right place. We're going to talk plenty about that. But all of that energy out there in some abstract place does us no good whatsoever. It does us no good until we bring it into contact with something. Well, Slim is here to show us that thing that the energy contacts. Remember, a body without energy is just a corpse. An energy without a body Well, it might be a number of cool things, but none of them are human. All right. Previously on Energy Contact, we have been discussing the things that you cannot see that are building the things that you can see. The physical built by the invisible, something built by nothing. We have seen that the invisible forces of nature always win. They never get tired. And so if we cooperate with them, we win too. Congratulations. But if we fight them, gravity will make us fall down and entropy will make us fall apart. Yet, so many people choose to fight. They'd rather fight. What's up with that? Whatever it is that makes us feel physically good or physically bad is a function of these unseen energy flows. And anything that flows has a current, like electricity does, like a river does. For the most part, health is pleasure and pain is sickness. Although we've also seen that not everything that feels good is good for us, and not everything that feels bad is bad for us. Pain and pleasure, like those other forces we've talked about, they're invisible things. You can't see them, but they're very real. And we've seen how all this acts, reacts, proacts, interacts with that body intellect we've been talking about. How the same materials in our brain that give us thought, reason, recall, logic, intellect, intelligence, all those things we've always thought of as brain things, they're in every cell of our body. We build everything into that body intellect. And then that body intellect turns around and builds us. And we've looked at one more unseen and invisible force, just briefly. That invisible force that those old yogis and those old Indian mystics called Kundalini energy. All right, so today we're going to see that the healthier we are, not only the more alive we are, not only the better we feel, but the better we think, the better we act, and the better we look. Most everybody is concerned about their appearance to some degree or another, and that's what our show's about today then. How health builds our physical form. How sickness does too, unfortunately. We're talking today about making you better looking, prettier, more handsome, whatever that is. We've seen already that what makes us feel physically good and physically bad is a function of these unseen energy flows. Well, they're the same things that make us look good or bad. And so today, we're going to look more at the cooperation or the conflict between energy currents, the external flows and the internal flows. Resistance to them is what results in aches, pains, miseries, suffering, even ugliness, bad things like that. Promotion of them brings health, happiness, growth, and self-improvement, and healthy good looks. And it's your body that is the battleground and the prize to be gained or lost. All right, so that's where we're headed today. But first, everybody stop, take a moment, and take a deep breath, because we have arrived at the part of our show where we get to take our virtual field trip, a journey in our mind's eye, like we do about this part of every show. For today's field trip, imagine that you are just walking down a street in your neighborhood one day, and you see a homeless woman. She lives in the streets of your neighborhood, and you've probably seen her every day or close to every day for years. And she's pleasant enough, sometimes you say hello, but she's obviously in pain. She's living an unhealthy lifestyle, to say the least, and she's obviously got a substance abuse problem. You might not be able to tell what the substance is, but she's hooked on something. And so she has this very ashen, pallid, unhealthy, even ugly appearance. It's hard to look at her. All the things that come along with that lifestyle. All right, now imagine that some time passes and you haven't seen her for a while. And then a few months later, maybe someplace else, maybe not the streets of your neighborhood, you're somewhere and you bump into her, you run into her. And she looks recognizable, of course, but completely different. She's got a healthy glow about her. She's got some skin color. She's got a light in her eyes. And so you go up and say something to her. You give her a hello. And she starts to tell you how she's moved into a shelter, how she's sober, how she's learning some job skills, how she's taking charge and taking control of her life. That's awesome. Good for her. But you also notice something else. For the first time ever, you look at her and she's attractive. she looks kind of pretty. All right, hold that thought. When you say you feel good, what is it that you feel? How do you know you feel good? We say, well, nothing hurts, but wait, is that all there is to pleasure? Just the absence of pain, the absence of abject misery and suffering? Is that all there is to it? Is that all there is to health? Just not having some pathology working at the moment? It seems to me that there's got to be something a little more to it than that. Well, that's what we're in the process of understanding here on Energy Contact. Because when we can understand it, only then can we have some control over it. We've been raised to think that we're at the mercy of luck, of coincidence, of circumstances, things beyond our control. But we're learning that we're in control of much more than we think. And as we gain control of how we feel, we gain control of our form, of how we look. Now remember, we are not talking about the terrible life-threatening diseases and the gory traumas and things like that today on Energy Contact. We'll get to them eventually. We'll get to everything eventually. But today, we are just talking about the aches and pains that haunt and bother us. And we're just presenting a few simple examples to make a few simple points. All right, so let's get even a little more basic than that. What is pain and what is health? Well, pain is sickness for sure, but more basically, pain is resistance to flow. It's swimming against that current of energy flow. When you feel bad, you can pretty much rest assured that there's something, some way, somehow, that you're not flowing with. Let's bring up a slide. We're going to look at a little pleasure and pain here. We experience the resistance to flow in different manifestations. Sickness is imbalance, so health is balance. Pain is compression, so pleasure is length, it's expansion. Sickness is separation, so health is unity. And pain is ugly. So good health looks as good as it feels. Your entire physical self is shaped by the unseen promotions and resistances to those unseen energy flows, the invisible shaping the visible. All right, let's come back here, because knowing that information, we can rebuild ourselves. In my work, I work with people who no longer have the cancers and the arthritises and the chronic fatigue, the chronic pain syndromes, the life-threatening things. A lot of those people are getting better. Great. But I also work with models and actors who are pretty healthy. They just want to change the way they look a little bit. And today, since we're talking about the way we look, I'm going to use those guys as an example. When they come to me, like I mentioned, they're normally pretty healthy. They just want to make little changes in the way they look. And so they come to me, and this same dialogue pretty much takes place every time. Here's how it goes. They say to me, "Why does my body look this way?" And I tell them, well, you did it. The reason you look the way you look is because you built yourself precisely, meticulously that way. And they never believe me at first. So I say, hey, you can blame anybody you like, but as long as you're blaming other people, you can't change it. You can't get better. Then they say to me, but Joseph, why would I build myself in a way that I don't like? Aha! Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting to the heart of the matter. That's the big question. It's because they did it without awareness. And so did you and I. Nobody told us. How could we know? And there are direct parallels between your appearance, between the way you look and the way you act, the way you think and the way you feel. All right, let's go back to pain and sickness for a second. We've also seen that there is such a thing as healthy pain, that not everything that hurts us is bad for us and that not everything that feels good is good for us. Let's bring up another slide. There's a number of very good reasons to be sick, which for us equals pain. Remember again, we're not talking about the huge life-threatening things here. But all of the things you see on your screen are good reasons to be sick. When you get a little sick, you build up the immune system. You build up antibodies. A cold's an example of a healthy sickness. It's a system cleanse. It strengthens the immune system so that we'll be strong enough to fight off bigger diseases. A little sickness tells us to slow down, to regroup, take a break, introspect, go inside and take a look at ourselves. It brings us awareness. It's a wake-up call. If you put your hand on a hot burner, pain lets you know that it might be a pretty good idea to move it. And so pain or a little sickness shows us symptoms to warn us of a deeper disease or a bigger problem. Ultimately, the purpose of pain then, or again, light sicknesses, is to bring some change, to get us to the point where we want to change. Healthy pains promote positive change. They are in fact a catalyst for change. All right, let's come back up here. In fact, there's good reasons not only for our pain, but for everything we feel, for every emotion and feeling in our palate. Even depression, fear, anxiety, anger, they have their healthy place. The only thing that makes them pathological is when we lose our balance of them, or when we lose our vision of why they're there, or what we're supposed to do with them. And so that's what makes us push and pull against the current of energy flow instead of cooperating with it. Okay, so we just looked at a bunch of good reasons to have a little pain, to feel a little off-center. But we're about to see that those are in fact not the reason that most people experience sickness most of the time. So many times we use our sickness as a manipulation of some sort. We say, well, or we think, well, if I moan and cry, people will be nice to me that wouldn't be nice to me otherwise. I'll get a little more attention. So I have a reason to be in pain. I have a reason to be sick or frail or a little pathetic or whatever. That's what's known as the secondary benefit of illness. And that's really all it is. It's an excuse to underachieve. It's an excuse to get attention. If you ever do that from time to time, well, enjoy it, because it's going to harm you. There's a price to pay for that. Soon, it will make you more seriously sick. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, every way. And then, it'll make you uglier. All right, so those good reasons that we just saw are not the reasons that most of us get sick most of the time. We get sick because we're hanging on to old angers, old hates, old resentments. We say, I'll never forgive that guy. He doesn't deserve forgiveness. Well, maybe he doesn't. But now you're not hurting him anymore. You're just hurting yourself. That's the reason why saints and holy people talk about turning the other cheek and things like that. It's not for their benefit. It's because they understand holding on to that old stuff will mess you up. It's going to make you angry. It's going to make you sick. It's going to make you miserable and ugly. It will twist and contort your physical form very slowly and very painfully. And then it'll kill you. All right, so let's look at a couple of the common reasons that we're sick. Let's bring up our next slide. These reasons aren't very healthy at all. We get sick as a way to identify ourselves with something. You ever at a party and somebody says, oh, I've got a terrible asthma problem, and somebody else says, oh, so do I, and they're high-fiving each other. It's like a membership to a club. We get sick because we have that attraction to drama, which is pathological in its own right. We get sick to prevent awareness, to hide things from ourselves. How? Well, we can't detect little subtle things when we're under the influence of bigger things. And we get sick to prevent change. We just saw that perhaps the best reason, the ultimate good reason for experiencing pain is to bring about change. And yet, the reason so many of us create pain is precisely in order to prevent change. All right, let's come back here. What does all this have to do with how we look? We want to keep our focus on that. Well, to look good, we need to feel good. Nobody looks great when they're miserable. And to feel good and get healthy, we need to lose our attraction to sickness, to break old patterns and grow. For us to grow, we need to change. And change is painful. Growth is painful. In childbirth, we hear that baby cry, and that's a good sign. That's how we know that he's alive and healthy. And mom, by the way, is in a little pain of her own during childbirth. The birth of any new thing has an element of pain to it. Even rebirth. It's okay It's a healthy thing. It's part of the plan. We want to continually be reborn, to continually renew. All of the great saints and all of your role models experienced pain. It's not by accident. It's set up that way. But how do we know the difference between the healthy pain that's good for us and the bad pain that's bad for us? Well, we're going to find out. But for now, just know this, that when you search for health and growth, you're also signing up for a little bit of pain. Healthy pain. All right, let's clarify further. Imagine you go to a gym. You get a gym trainer. You go to an exercise class. And the whole class, all you do is sit around. Well, at the end of it, you'd want your money back, because the reason you go there is to experience pain, in a way, or at least some discomfort. You go to push yourself beyond the point where everything is pleasant, to throw away your precious boundaries for a few minutes and move forward. So it is with our aches and pains. They're there naturally to serve some sort of purpose, to give us something to stretch past, to grow past, and motion past and move along. We're not made to not hurt. We're made, in fact, to get hurt and then to be resilient, to bounce back, to heal. So, we have seen that pleasure can be very healthy and pain can be very healthy. But you know what's never healthy, or at least hardly ever healthy, is numbness. Numbness is not a healthy thing. And yet, we take medications to numb us. It's the main reason we do it. We take that to stop feeling at all levels, to stop feeling our inputs, to stop feeling physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, every way. We stop feeling rather than to understand what it is we feel, why we feel it, and what to do about it. If we got there, that pain might be temporary, but as long as we're not getting the message, we're numbing it, well, it just might go on forever, which means we might need the meds forever. The purpose of a healthy life is to live to a ripe old age in completely perfect health, to be completely full of life until that day that we let go of it, and then just drop dead. Most of us let life drip away a little bit at a time. We're not living that full life. We're letting it slip away. We die a little more every day, and we call it getting older. All right, since I've mentioned getting older, let's talk about aging for a second. The aging process begins at conception. So you younger folks watching today's show, you got to keep listening. As we move along in years, though, how we've promoted and resisted flow from the time we were young begins to manifest itself. It begins to show itself on us more and more. Have you ever noticed that some seniors just look good? They really do. How can they look so healthy? Well, it's because they are, duh. They might be in their 80s, but they can still play a game of tennis or maybe walk a mile or two every day. They still have motion. They still have movement. They're flowing, and that promotion of flow is what keeps them healthy. Other seniors just look like they're watching life slip through their fingers like grains of sand. Now, if you're a senior citizen, you can stop dying and start living. But the law of entropy tells us that if you're doing nothing right now, you're falling apart right now. You don't have to do much to change that, but you've got to do something. You can't just take a pill and do nothing and expect positive change. All right, what if you're a few years younger than that? Well, if you are, the best time to start cooperating with those energy flows is now. Gravity is an energy field, and the more you cooperate with it, the more you align with it, the more you promote the flow of it, well, the healthier you'll be, the healthier you'll feel, the healthier you'll act, and the better you'll look, whether you're 9 or 99. Okay, so some people do look a little more dead. They look a little more dead this year than they did last year. And they don't have to be old to experience that. Our homeless friend that we saw at the beginning of the show, she looked a little more pallid and a little less alive every day, didn't she? Until she made a decision to do something about it. She was ashen, hollow, haggard. You've seen that Walking Dead look in people before. You know what I'm talking about when I describe it. But our friend, later, when she figured it out, she decided to be well. That's basically all it took. And then she started looking better and better every day. It was easy. Why? Well, just because she stopped building herself in bad ways and started building herself in good ways. She stopped swimming against the current of energy flow and she started swimming with it. All she had to do was figure it out. All those actors and models I was talking to you about that come to me, they figure it out too, usually. On the other hand, the anorexic models that you read about in the news, well, they're a different story. They might be looking good and getting work when they're 18, but they better be taking that money to pay for tuition to get another job, learn some skills, because by the time they're 35, they're going to look a whole lot like our homeless person did before she got better. And the same thing goes for those steroid-popping weightlifters too. All right, let's bring back an old story from the Energy Contact archives to illustrate it further. Let's say you go to the freezer one day and you don't like the way the ice cubes look. So what do? You take them out, sit them on the counter. Go away for a few hours, come back. Ice isn't ice anymore. It's water. So you pick it up very carefully, put it back in the freezer, come back a few hours again. The water isn't water anymore. It's ice again. Wonder of wonders. But this time, it's refrozen in a brand new shape. You haven't taken one drop out. You haven't put one drop in. Not one molecule is different, but it's got a new shape. What's up with that? This is not mystical stuff. It's grade school science. A preschooler knows how to freeze water. This is how ice and water work. It's how steam works too. Our senses perceive them different. They look different and feel different, but they're exactly the same. And that's how mass and energy work in you. Let's tie that in with our buddy Einstein for a second. We looked at Einstein last show. Einstein was the first person in history, perhaps, who looked at you and saw nothing at all. Or to put it another way, he looked at you and saw you not as a block of ice, but as frozen steam. He saw you as wavelengths and frequencies that somehow fix themselves into the appearance of some sort of form. But the form wasn't real, only the wavelengths. That's how Einstein saw you. That's how I see you too. And if you watch Energy Contact for long enough, that's how you'll start to see yourself. The more steamy you are, in fact, the more pliable your form, which is more capable of promoting molecular flow. And therefore, it's a little more real. And then the more healthy you become, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, every way. And the more healthy you are, the better you think, the better you look, the better you act, and the better you feel. We divvy out our energy forces, allowing too little here and too much over there. It affects how we think, look, act, and feel. But we can do something about it. And the short answer is we stop resisting flow and start promoting it. Thanks for joining me today. I wish you peace and positive energy and a healthy life in Energy Contact.